Mr. Ambassador, you're a long time here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you know very well our situation here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. What is your current view on the situation here in the country?
Well, the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina has never been easy. Of course, it's politically complicated, but it has always been that way. Not that it's unstable. I wouldn't call it unstable, but politically, yes, of course, it's complicated. If we look at the recent developments here, of course, we would be talking about elections, perhaps about the situation around the referenda in Republika Srpska. I mean, there are constant issues that never leave us, like Mostar, for example. So politically, it's always interesting, and politically, something is always happening, and that's also what keeps me busy.
You have mentioned referendum in RS. You have voiced your disagreement with the rest of the international community when it comes to the referendum and potential sanctions against Mr. Dodik and a referendum in RS. And you're spending a lot of time speaking with him and other representatives of RS. What is Russia's point and stand on a referendum in RS?
Well, first of all, Mr. Dodik is not the only person I'm speaking to in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I also talk to Dr. Čović. I also speak to Mr. Izetbegović. I speak to Mladen Ivanić all the time. So, I mean, I have a variety of interlocutors here. That's the first point. Second, sanctions were never discussed. And as a member of the steering board on the ambassadorial and on sort of on a higher level, I can sort of say that sanctions were never an issue. Yes, we differed. The Russian Federation differed with our colleagues on the issue of the referendum. The essence of the question is the legal perspective, the decision of the Constitutional Court, and the root of the problem, and the way out, and the way forward. You remember how the whole thing originated. There was a request, I think it was in 2009, from Bakir Izetbegović to the Constitutional Court on whether the national holiday of Republika Srpska, the day of Republika Srpska, was constitutional or not. I will not argue that the request was political because Bakir Izetbegović asked the Constitutional Court to look whether this somehow was the celebration of the day of Republika Srpska was to the detriment of the Bosniak population of Republika Srpska. Well, of course, as a member of the presidency, he has the right to raise this question. But there's another side to it, of course, whether the day of Republika Srpska somehow, in fact, was to the detriment. But that's probably a different question and not for me to answer. The request was political. The Constitutional Court examined it, and unfortunately, they came to a decision which, in my view, but it's a personal view, put it this way, was not absolutely correct. Republika Srpska has been celebrating its day for the last 20 years. No one had any objections. Then all of a sudden, in 2015, it becomes illegal. I mean, yes, the Constitutional Court had its considerations. Yes, the Constitutional Court has a right to look at issues from a legal perspective. But my point is that aside from legal perspective, there are human emotional issues involved. And if roughly one third of the population of Bosnia and Herzegovina is being denied, I mean, with a drop of the pen, its national day, I mean, I wouldn't, if I were a Serb, I wouldn't sort of take it lightly. And I think that's what happened. Now, why we differed with the rest of the international community? I respect the decisions of the Constitutional Court. It's part of the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, of the Dayton Constitution, and of course, its decisions must be respected. But on the other hand, what happened in Republika Srpska was also an expression of democratic right of the people, who were asked to say whether they were willing to abandon celebration of the National Day. And 99.8%, I think, said no. So decision of the people should also be respected. My partners were, in my view, somewhat legalistic in their opinion. They looked at the legal side of the problem only. Decisions of the Constitutional Court need to be respected, full stop. But did this offer a solution to the problem? No, it didn't. The solution could only be found, and should have been found, through dialogue, through a political process. That's why in my previous interviews at the time of the referendum, I called the parties to take a step back, to calmly look at the situation evolving, and to reach a political decision.
So wouldn't be there a political try to find a political solution if Mr. Dodik have cancelled a referendum and sit down and talk with Mr. Izetbegovic?
Well, may have been a solution, but dialogue implies, and dialogue and compromise solutions, decisions, imply movement on two sides. What was requested at that time was that Republika Srpska abandon the referendum, and then we will see. Banja Luka assumed that this wasn't fair, and I can understand their position.
Do you think that the international community should use bond powers to stop any kind of political games here in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Look, first of all, in my view, bond powers should never be used unless perhaps in a critical situation. What is a critical situation? The country falling apart, for example. Then the international community should, or a threat of an open conflict within the country. Then the international community should consider tough measures. But conduct of a referendum, which, by the way, went without any problems, there were no accidents, there were no riots, there was nothing. Is this a case for the use of bond powers? No, I don't think so. By the way, the last time bond powers were used was in 2011, and I'm sorry, it was an attempt to resolve the situation in the Federation, the government of the Federation, and this was a disaster. It didn't help, to the contrary, it made things worse. I made known our approach with regard to the High Representative on a number of occasions, and this is the position of my country. I think the time of the High Representative has long passed. The office, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a sovereign state. It was a member of the Security Council of the United Nations a few years ago. And now we have this vestige of the past, the OHR, which is a sovereign within a sovereign state. Is that reasonable? No.
Mr. Ambassador, here in Federation, you have often been seen as someone who's aiding Milorad Dodik, as somebody who's trying to break up a country. Is that really your position and a position of your country?
No. We have signed the Dayton Agreement, and I can say it publicly once again, repeat what I've said before. We stand for the territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I am an ambassador to Bosnia and Herzegovina, not to Republika Srpska. It doesn't mean that I do not talk to the two entities who have special powers under the Dayton Agreement. By the way, I do not only talk to President Dodik. As I've said, I talk to Dr. Čović, to member of the presidency Izetbegović, to Mladen Ivanić. I talked to the Prime Minister of the Federation, Novalić.
You speak with all of them.
I speak with all of them.
Let's touch on two other issues interesting here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. One is elections in Srebrenica. What is your view of that process, and how you look at all these back and forth political games between Bosniaks and Serbs when it comes to Srebrenica?
Well, I think the essence of the problem with regard to Srebrenica is that the whole issue has been overtly politicized. I mean, Srebrenica is one of the municipalities of Bosnia and Herzegovina, of Republika Srpska. At the same time, of course, there is the Potocari Memorial, which is a memorial to the martyrs, to those who were brutally killed during the conflict. Their memory should be respected. There's no doubt about it. That's, I think nobody disagrees with that. But what we need to take out of this equation is the political aspect. Yes, commemoration of the anniversary of the Srebrenica events should continue to be held, and that's, by the way, what Grujicevic, the new mayor, has said. But it should be held not as a political event, not as an event that separates Bosniaks from the Serbs, but as something that pays tribute to the victims, but also looks to the future. Looks to the future in terms of that such events should never be repeated, and that the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina should live together, developing tolerance, developing trust, developing cooperation among themselves. That's should be the essence of the commemoration. Now, the new mayor of Srebrenica, I think he rightly said that he will be the mayor of all the communities of Srebrenica, and I respect and actually I support this statement. That's what he should be. He should represent all the communities, well, the two communities, the Bosniaks, both the Bosniaks and the Serbs. And his activities, they should not be political. They should be directed at resolving social and economic problems of the municipality.
Your country is known that it has differences on international scene with the NATO pact. Do you think that Bosnia should become a member of NATO?
I think you answered the question yourself. No, we don't believe that Bosnia should become a member of NATO. First of all, we don't see NATO as something that actually contributes to the security and stability in Europe. We believe that sort of expanding NATO further is detrimental to the security and stability in the Balkans. What would Bosnia and Herzegovina gain from becoming a member of NATO? the arguments I hear that, oh, it will make Bosnia and Herzegovina part of the civilized world. Sorry, Bosnia and Herzegovina is already part of the civilized world. It would improve the process, socio-economic development of the country. It would enhance the European values in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm sorry, what has NATO got to do with socio-economic development or European values? If you ask me, European Union, yes, membership in the European Union has its value in this sense. But NATO, why NATO? It would improve the security of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm sorry, security from whom? The neighbors? Do you see Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro threatening Bosnia and Herzegovina? As an ambassador, as someone who has been dealing with the region for a number of years, I don't see any viable threats. From further afar, whom do we have? Slovenia, Italy, Hungary? Well, that's ridiculous. Russian Federation threatening Bosnia and Herzegovina? Doubt it.
Let's just move for a second to the region of Balkans. You just mentioned Montenegro and Serbia. Prime Minister of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, and Prime Minister of Montenegro, Milo Đukanović, are exchanging messages over last few days that there is some kind of spying games here in the Balkans region. Some are mentioning the West, and someone are mentioning East, and East means Russia, and the West is America. Is there any truth in those claims that Russia is playing some sort of spy games in Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia? Also, the second part of this question is that Russia is often accused that is playing propaganda games through the medias, especially in Serbia and in Montenegro and in part of Bosnia and Herzegovina in RS. Is also there any truth in those accusations against your country?
Well, I'm not aware of any spy games, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Russian official who's trying to deny something. I don't see any spy games being played. Something has happened. I don't know what has happened. I simply do not have enough information. A group of people, with armed people, I understand, were arrested in Montenegro on the eve of the elections. I mean, it's being said that they attempted to overthrow the current government. I mean, frankly, I haven't seen any evidence to prove this point or to deny it. I mean, it's a statement that comes from the government. I believe the authorities of Montenegro will make their findings public, and then we can judge. What President Vučić has said was that they have uncovered a group in Serbia that was allegedly following President Đukanović's movements and was also thinking about sort of bringing arms into Montenegro. I take what he said, but I do not quite follow the logic. What does this imply? I mean, let's simply wait and see what happens. We are propaganda games. I guess every country has a role in well, I wouldn't call them games. Has propaganda, and also each country has the right to express their opinions on what is happening. We had a very advanced relationship with Montenegro. If you remember, in 2005, 2006, when the what was called Savez, this union between Serbia and Montenegro fell apart, well, we supported the democratic choice of the Montenegrin people, and we We sort of welcomed them as another state, as a new state. We had strong economic interests in Montenegro. They have, in the last years, they have somewhat decreased, but still, our businessmen and actually the Russians have bought quite a bit of property in Montenegro, and they still own it. We do not have an interest in Montenegro, sort of in instability in Montenegro, even if it were for this simple reason.
There is a talk that Prime Minister of Russia, Mr. Medvedev, is going to visit in recent months Serbia. President Putin recently has visited Slovenia, but we haven't seen them any time visiting Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why is that?
I would very much welcome such a development as an ambassador. It's always an honor and a tribute to what one is doing when one's boss is coming to the country. Unfortunately, we did not have visits, high-level visits, since I think 2009. Lavrov came in November 2009. I would very much like to see it happen. But you see, there's one simple point, and I'm trying also explaining it not only to you, to your audience, but also to the politicians here. A visit of the head of state or a head of government implies a high point in the relationship. It's not simply to come and shake hands and smile to one another, but it means that there are agreements reached, agreements signed, that there are decisions made with regard to progress, strong progress in various areas. I mean, we're working on that. Hopefully, early next year, we'll have a session of the what's called Intergovernmental Committee on Trade and Economic Cooperation. That's a step. That's a step. Because the two co-chairs from the Bosnian side, it's Minister Šarović. They will examine what's happening in the bilateral relationship, trade and economic cooperation, investment, tourism, whatever else, and sign or initial a number of agreements. That would be a step. If this step is followed by a high-level visit, that would be great.
Let's talk about that trade part between Bosnia and Russia. Recently, we had the problems in trade when it comes to fruits and vegetables between Bosnia and Russia. And I know that there was also a second delegation from Russia's side when it comes to trade on meat and dairy. What's happening at the moment with those two areas?
Well, yes, we had a problem with the exports of fruit and vegetables from Bosnia and Herzegovina to Russia. Actually, I was strongly advocating the increase in such exports. Actually, was inviting the local producers to take advantage of the sanctions and to put their produce to replace what we're not receiving from our former suppliers. And in the last year, the amount of imports of fruits and vegetables have more than tripled. Then in August, we had a peculiar situation. I think it was a result of misunderstanding. Our agency, which certifies the quality and the origin of exports, for some reason believed that Bosnia and Herzegovina may be re-exporting produce from other states, sort of branding it as their own, and selling it this way to Russia. So they sent an inspection. The inspection did not find evidence that this was the case. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. I mean, they asked to come immediately in July. I mean, the authorities here were hesitant. Our people did not sort of suggest the urgency of the problem. So it was suggested from Sarajevo that this delegation should come in autumn. Our people said no, autumn is too late, and they introduced those restrictions, which in my view could have been avoided. Then came the inspectors, and they resolved the issue. Now it has been lifted. Unfortunately, it's a bit late in the year, but still some of the supplies are on the way to Russia. That's fruit and vegetables. We have always argued that the meat and dairy products in Bosnia and Herzegovina are of very high quality and can be marketed by Russian retailers. We have been discussing this thing for some months, and finally an inspectorate group came in September. They went to Sarajevo, Banja Luka, Travnik, Mostar, Trebinje, Kosovska Dubica, and a number of other places. And they actually looked at the producers, at the enterprises, and in a couple of months, it takes a while for them to analyze the results. I think they will come at a decision to allow experts from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So
should we expect now competition between Russia and Turkey when it comes to meat? Because we just signed a new deal for Turkey.
I know you did. But I think your producers are quite capable of supplying products to markets, and that would be a great thing.
Beside these two areas of trade, where is other potential zone for cooperation between Bosnia and Russia, and how these relations could we make better and more successful for both sides?
I would say tourism. We have been working on this for some time. There is a good potential here for tourism. The main problem I think we come across is lack of transport infrastructure, as far as we're concerned. There are no direct flights to Sarajevo. There's no railway. Bus communication, I mean, coming from Russia, it's a long way off. It's a long way off. So what we're thinking about, for example, in case of Trebinje, we're considering the option of, say, Russian tourists who visit Montenegro or Croatia, Dubrovnik, for example, to come into Herzegovina from that side. We also believe that winter tourism is an asset you have. Jaharina, Belašnica, Igman, I mean, they are venues for winter tourism. Unfortunately, we had sort of a case in the winter 2013-2014, when actually we started bringing in charter flights with skiers to Sarajevo. There was no snow in the beginning of January. Well, I mean, that was bad luck. So there is a potential, and we are actually working on this.